Welcome to One Man's Tracks, the second-hand music channel. This week, I discovered the Cardigans. They're a Swedish pop band that were formed back in 1992 by guitarist Peter Svensson and bassist Magnus Svenningsson. They were joined by vocalist Nina Persson, keyboardist Lars-Olof Johansson, as well as drummer Bengt Lagerberg, and they'd moved to Sweden's third largest city, Malmö, and by 1994 they were signed with Stockholm Records and released their breezy, British-inspired debut album titled Emmerdale. Their vintage, sunshiny, bubblegum vibes were quickly popular in their home country as well as Japan, and that success grew even more with the release of their 1995 album Life. That went double platinum in Japan, and its single Carnival had some decent airplay and appeared in a pair of films, but their mainstream breakthrough success came with the lead single off of their third album in 1997 called The First Band on the Moon, and that single was called Love Fool. It popped up in the blockbuster Romeo and Juliet soundtrack that was released in spring of that year, and it pushed that album's sales beyond over 2 million copies worldwide. They'd become the biggest band in Sweden, but were also getting a little burnt out and frustrated with their easy listening lounge associations, wanting to make a different style of music, so they'd team up once again with the same producer, Tore Johansson, but this time he'd just gotten his hands on Pro Tools for the first time, and so they boldly set out to make something almost completely different. With this, their fourth album through Stockholm Records, released in October of 1998. This is the Cardigans' Gran Turismo. This album is defiant and deliberately starkly contrasts their other works. It sees the band gritting their way through this dark, cold, and entrancing, more electronic journey towards what potentially could have been the future of rock music. They don't know at the time, they're just shooting beyond the moon with this one. It's a declaration of a new definition, and its conviction and competence stand up to scrutiny over 20 years since its introduction. It's super well mixed and balanced with such an emotional edge to its atmosphere and songwriting. This progressive alternative rock CD's full oral palette is immersive, satisfying, and memorable. From its danceable grooves to the thoughtful, dejected ballads, the Cardigans have compiled this catchy flowing project that proves the band's eclectic abilities, reinforced them as hitmakers, and brought them up to the highest point in their careers. I love Nina's sweet and clear voice. Her cynical obsession with the complexities of love and relationships tends to lead these tales down some familiar paths, but with some unfamiliar twists. Peter's compositions guide those tales and give them the depth and texture needed to sink right into. And now I'm fully immersed in Gran Turismo and would love to take you through its 42 minutes. Soaking in this track list, starting out with its cinematic and booming opener, Paralyzed. It takes you off guard. It has a soft, whistled intro, but then slams into you with some deep, bassy hits that embody this track's themes of a slow, sweet death by way of love. Nina says it best here, it's the sweetest way to die, and she soars on top of this one's theatrical, industrial vibes. The following Erase Rewind is a good way to describe the band's approach in coming to make this album, erasing that old stuff and restarting with a new idea. I think this track is awesome. I like it a lot. It's subtle, heartbeat drumming, and the overall swagger in its presentation are what sells me here. Explode brings in some somber, introspective tones and is quite a bit less direct than the rest of the songs here. I think it's about an addiction or dependency of some sort. It might even specifically be about prostitution, but I don't know. It has this sparkling, fairy tale-like vocal delivery that is pleasant, but it seems to also obscure this track's ultimate meaning. Now, the album stays dark and gritty, but there's a bit of a hopeful, or at least less defeated air to the next track's starter. It wouldn't be a bad opening track, to be honest, but I do feel like it has a little more impact given the context of its predecessors. It's about kind of moving forward, leaving the past behind. It can feel a bit arrogant at times, but I don't think it's all that unrealistic either. Then we get a garbage-esque emo rocker about not seeing eye to eye called Hanging Around. It really fills out well as it progresses, and it leads us to the heavenly surrender in the center of the LP called Higher. It's the most uplifting cut here. It's got some escapist ideals, and I just can't help but shake this sense of dread that I get from almost all of these tracks, but even here on this floating, beautiful, harmonic number, it might be the sterility of the production. There's something there that really just makes this whole album a little bit unique and makes me want to talk about it here with you. There's a swaying psych rock song called Marble Hill that has a somewhat monotonous instrumental that is terrifically elevated by Nina's singing. It's about finally getting to where you thought you wanted to be and then realizing you're still unfulfilled once you get there. It's a pretty unfortunate circumstance, but fortunately from there we get to move on to my favorite song. It's my favorite game. A top track. It's about another relationship that's slipping away. It's told with a driving beat, clever lyrics, and a wonderfully atmospheric chorus. Staying confident and cynical as ever with the clear and compelling "Do You Believe?" but then slowing right down and begging for forgiveness on the closing ballad, "Junk of the Heart." Taking out the trash, apologizing for the mess, and then ending with a rockin' send-off that will leave you floating in Lars-Olof's ethereal, explorative piano instrumental called Nil that ends this grand journey. A quick, crisp, and engaged ride. Gran Turismo is an excellent statement, and the final exasperated punctuation in an exhaustive, creative musical spree for the Cardigans. Intentionally cold and heavy, yet still glimmering with their unique fingerprint. As much as I love their early albums, this is the one that solidifies their legacy and allows them to take their next steps in whatever direction they wanted. For a fair few of the members, the hiatus period that came after this album led to some solo experimentation as well as some collaborative efforts. I'm looking forward to trying out A-Camp, Pals, and Righteous Boy, and I really did enjoy their B-sides album, The Other Side of the Moon, that I think came out around the time that this was released as well. They'd reunite in 2002 to record some far quieter, mature, and Americana-influenced songs for their fifth record, Long Gone Before Daylight, touring that album with Liz Phair and others on the Chicks with Attitude tour in 2004, and then returning to the studio for the final time with Torre to record the sixth and last installment in the Cardigans catalog, Super Extra Gravity, that came out in 2005. The band took another long hiatus after that album, taking 6 years off and returning in 2012 to, I believe, play these songs live once again, and they've toured it for a 20th anniversary back in 2018, and have some shows booked in Europe post-pandemic already, and so there's still a chance to see these songs from a stage if you like. Which one of their songs would you love to see in person? Have you gotten a chance to see them live? I'd love to hear about your experiences and your thoughts on this album and the Cardigans down in the comments. Leave a like if you've made it this far in the video. You know it takes me higher. Check out another review I think you'd like over here and over here. Subscribe for next week's secondhand band. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Now, I'm losing my mind again.